And welcome to Conservative Talk.
To run off or not to run off?
And we also have to ask the question, what else has the CDC been hiding?
And do you want to be an American citizen? Because apparently you need to check yes or no, A, B, C, or D, or true or false.
And we want to say a quick happy birthday to the Bill of Rights, but it also does beg the question, can it last for another 231 years?
And in the conspiracy corner, Buck says it's time that we have a sit down and talk about the Biden regime's well of an overreach.
That's a well of a question.
And we're not talking about a killer well either.
Bye. And welcome back to Conservative Talk. My name's Justin.
And this is Jamie.
And before we start every episode, we'd like to remind our viewers to make sure they're hitting the like and the share button on every episode that they run across on any of our platforms, as well as hitting the subscribe button on any of our platforms that you do see any of our content on. That way you'll stay up to date with any of the content that we produce, as well as always be able to see Jamie's incredibly smiling face and hear that roaringly infectious laughter. We also invite our viewers to make sure they're going to conservativestalk.org and hitting that sponsor tab in the upper right-hand corner or the lower right-hand corner and helping us out with what you're able to, because every little bit goes a long way towards allowing Jamie and I to continue to be able to produce this content, get it out to y'all, share it wide and abroad in an effort to eventually one of these days be able to take over the world. And with that in mind, Jamie, would you like to give your first reminder?
Boycott hometown headlines. You guys have been doing a great job. We have to end this coup of a fest from the left. And the first thing that we need to do is we need to have everyone unsubscribe to hometown headlines and their parent company.
Absolutely. And what about your second?
It's been 39 wonderful, gracious days that God has given us without Stacey Abrams.
Don't you say it.
Without Stacey Abrams. I stopped.
He's going to get us canceled one of these days.
Well, she can't do it.
She's out cute. She's out chewing cud.
Hey, look. I wonder what she's going to pop up and do next. Because look, well,
right now it's hucking children's books.
Well, here's the other thing, right? But how long is that going to last before the investigation on all of these made up voter registry and PACs that she started that her name's all over? I think the only place that might save her is the state of California. And so maybe one day she'll run for office, actually win something out in the state of California. I think that may be next. So look forward to Stacey Abrams hightailing out of Georgia and going to California where she might be able to win an office.
Well, with that in mind, we also want to say a quick thank you to our affiliates, and our first one being Net News Network. So you can find Net News Network on netnewsnetwork.net. They are a great compilation of finding local on the ground reporters and giving you the information that you would not get from the mainstream media from a firsthand perspective. We also want to say a quick thank you to Veterans for America First. So they are a grassroots political organization that really gets out there and puts forth the America First policy. And they do that through their media wing, and that being Vets Voice. So Vets Voice, you will only find America First content producers who are on the grounds, in the trenches, fighting in the political battles to ensure that America remains the greatest nation in the world. And with that all said and done, Jamie, how about we jump right into our first topic, and that being to run off or not to run off?
Yeah, this is where things start to get kind of interesting.
A little bit.
So for one, we're talking about the various ways that, we've now gone through two different iterations over the last, two cycles of how we handle runoffs here in the state of Georgia.
Mm-hmm.
And for one of them, some people felt it was too long. So when the SB 202 came in, this one was shortened a little bit to where now this past runoff was for 28 days, and now people are coming in with a whole nother level of iteration.
Yes. So the Secretary of State had come out here in a recent article and was talking about how he had some advice on how to alleviate a lot of the heartburn that had come out of the last runoff elections, just because of the fact, you saw a lot of lines because a lot of people were trying to get out an early vote, which they were able to, but they did have to stand in lines upwards of 2 hours in some areas. So he came up with a couple of ideas that could have alleviated some of this. And one of them, the three of the ideas that he had was that they would essentially remove the runoff strategy altogether, which, okay, plausible. Then you have the option of the ranked choices, which we'll get into here in just a minute as well, which
that's the least favorite.
Entirely confusing. Oh my gosh, it's
that's the least favorite.
Yeah, it's wow. It's
and anybody who watched our election breakdown show, and we started talking about Alaska, we're still looking for someone from the state of Alaska to come on to help us understand how you run an election, because ranked choice is the most absurd thing I've ever seen in my entire life. But that's a whole other
little bit of that. It's definitely something that requires a lot of thought process to go into, because what they're saying there is that you could have a Democrat, that you would rank whether you wanted a Republican, then maybe the next one being a Libertarian, then the next one being a Democrat, and then or an entire gamut of that sort of an idea.
Because if you're like Alaska, then it could be multiple from one party, almost like a jungle primary. Almost like a jungle election.
In the primaries, yes, but in the election, when you only have a specific.
So is that how Georgia would do it, or would it be something like Alaska?
Well, it would be primaries would be left alone.
Okay,
it would be the general election that this would affect.
So it would only affect the general. We wouldn't.
Yes.
So we would never have a situation like Alaska. I'm really driving that home. You know what I mean? Because now we've gone through we've gone through a jungle election, then we've gone through, runoffs. Now we've gone through, all different forms of iterations of elections that Georgians are not used to over the last, 3 years, basically. And so I think it's that's why I really want to highlight it, because everyone like myself who looked at Alaska can go, what are you doing? And then you hear our Secretary of State saying, well, what about this idea? We're all like, no, that's not a great one. He did have a great one, though. We're removing some of the voting machines, but, and starting a different system. But outside of that, I don't know about changing the runoff process right now.
Well, I will say this. One of the other things that he did talk about was removing the 50% plus one vote. That's something that I could get behind, because I've been involved with campaigns that received between 45 and 48% of the electoral vote, but then still had to go to a runoff. And the nearest competitor to them was in the 20s, and you had to go to a runoff with that particular individual.
Yeah.
So I can see that aspect of it, which I would actually say going to a plurality system I can see I could see.
Well, because then we know.
Yes.
There's no more Groundhog Day. And for those of you who don't know, that's basically what it's referred to whenever the state decides that we're going into a runoff, because usually those of us who are on the trail all the time, when we hear election day, that's like a holiday for us, because we're like, here it is, it's over, or it's Groundhog Day, to where that means, we got 4 to 6 more weeks campaigning.
So that's something that a Democrat actually dropped with House Bill 2.
So now I don't like it anymore.
Yeah, well, they said let's move it from a 4-week to a 6-week.
Well, and that's roughly about what it used to be.
Plus 3 weeks.
Was it 9 weeks?
It was 9 weeks.
Why was it so long?
Well, that's the reason why they changed it in SB.
Anyway, but here's the thing though. 28 days was not enough time.
I'm not disagreeing with that. I'm just saying.
I didn't realize it was 9 weeks. That was interesting. 9 weeks. Anyway, I remember that we were all over the place.
A little bit of that.
We were all over the place that time.
It was definitely something that not only encumbered the candidates, but encumbered the public in general, because you had the election, and then you had an additional 9 weeks of a runoff.
I still can't believe it was 9 weeks. I mean, I just remember we were everywhere. I mean, we were
November to the second, well, the first week of January, the first week of November to the second was the first weekend of January.
Yeah, that's right. Because even though we weren't actively campaigning for 9 weeks because of the holidays and everything. I mean, let's be,
I explicitly remember sitting down and watching on Christmas Day, and I see campaign ads jumping up on the TV.
Well, campaign ads jumping up on the TV.
Still campaigning.
Okay. But and then actively being out within the holidays is a totally different ballgame. But I mean, we were, you had the bus tours that were coming through.
Mm-hmm.
We were in multiple cities with seeing the buses and different things like that, different campaign stops. Former President Mike Pence came in. We were there for that. We had all different types of people coming in. That was forever. It's all a blur now. I just think 28 days is not enough time. Not really for anyone. There wasn't even enough time to get out the message to people about the, that, hey, it's December 6th, not January anymore. Which is a big thing.
And then you had the whole idea, or you had the whole, was it the RLAs going on? You had the actual hand counts and the hand audits that were going on. But yeah, it's a lot to pack into 4 weeks. And I will say that's the reason why I am a cautious advocate of removing or moving towards the plurality system.
Which makes sense. I mean, just in everything on election day, which is really where everybody wants to go anyway.
Oh yeah, because you want to know that day.
Yep.
And that's the best way to know.
Yep. I agree with that.
But yeah, so they're looking to do that. And I mean, what was it? It was last year. I read an article just the other day that said that it cost taxpayers in 2021 $75 million in order to hold the U.S. Senate runoffs in 2021. So for those two statewide elections, it cost the taxpayers $75 million.
I believe that. And then I don't think the final number's in yet. You may know better than I do of what this past one was. I mean, just in advertising alone, Well,
no, well, I mean, that was just, that was what the candidate spent. I'm talking about this actually came out of the state coffers.
No. I understand. But I'm talking about even just out of the candidates alone, we're well over $100 million. And so
300 some instances.
So when you start looking at what the total cost of this election between candidates, taxpayers, everything else for this previous runoff.
Yeah, I mean it's a hefty burden that the taxpayers have to put on, and so I can get behind something that the Secretary of State is advocating for, but only one part of it, and that being the plurality system.
Yep, I agree with that.
Yeah, the other three, no, the ranked choice.
No.
So Georgia has instituted the ranked choice for overseas voting.
Correct.
So what they do is they send out the ballot and they say, select the candidates in the order of the preference of what you would like to see them in elected office. Say if you're a Republican, you would say, okay, well,
the runoff is a good example.
Yes. Yeah, you would say, okay, so I want the Republican candidate as number one, I want the Libertarian candidate as number two, and I want the Democrat candidate as number three. And they would take that, and if the Republican did not get 50%, then they would go back and see which candidate got the second highest vote.
Yep.
So if a libertarian came out and said the libertarian votes number 1, Republican number 2, Democrat number 3, then that second selection would then move towards the runoff election.
Yep.
It's right for fraud. It's right for misconception.
Which is one of the interesting things
much.
that I found out, because I usually do like adjudication on the adjudication panel and things like that, and the overseas ballots that came in, if you're in a runoff, they still rank all 3 who were on the general ballot.
Mm-hmm.
And so if someone put, this is just pure example, right? If someone put in a runoff that number, they didn't, let's say they only ranked, the Libertarian and the Democrat, didn't rank the Republican, or they ranked number 1 for the Libertarian, then that means that the vote goes to whoever their number 2 choice is, not whoever is else, or doesn't count.
Yeah, it's a
ranked choice is the worst decision we could do.
It's a very muddy decision. It's something that the state needs to stay as far away from as they possibly can. I mean, just look at what Alaska did and how that turned out for them.
I mean, their math wasn't even right. 48 plus 3 does not make. Like, I will never forget saying that. It was like there were 2 Republicans have 48%, and then the Democrat has 3. I was like, I don't know. That's not.
Yeah, that's an interesting one altogether. But with that in mind, we always do like to remind our viewers to make sure they're hitting the like button and the share button on any of the content they come across, any of the platforms that we do, as well as hitting the subscribe button. That way you never miss a single episode or any of the content that we do produce. You'll always be able to see Jamie's incredibly smiling face and hear that roaringly infectious laughter. We also invite them to go to our website at conservativestalk.org and hitting that sponsor tab and helping us out with what you're able to, because you will be directly contributing to allowing Jamie and I to eventually one of these days take over the world. Just FYI.
I mean, just be blunt with it.
It's the best way to be, right?
I mean, honesty is the best policy.
Exactly. So that runs us into our next topic, and that is we have to ask, what else is the CDC hiding?
I think it's a lot.
Well,
just don't start deleting things.
If only, right?
You know what I mean? Like, you just don't. I mean, you only delete things you're trying to hide. Like, I don't know what else. Why?
Especially when it comes to efforts from gun control advocates and these massive gun grabbers that are out there.
That's it.
So there has been a new expose that has been unearthed in October of 2021. There were several gun control organizations that held virtual meetings with the new head of the CDC. And in these meetings, they advocated for the removal of statistics that showed the number of times that firearms were used nationally in an effort to thwart any sort of criminal activity, in the upwards of 60,000 to 2.5 million times. Or excuse me, 2.6 million times.
That's outrageous. I mean, that's the only way you can describe something like that. And the fact that, like, the head of the CDC sat down with these deplorable humans is just kind of, I mean, it's really outrageous.
So
I don't see her sitting down with all the gun manufacturers.
No, not at all. And so it was actually set up through a U.S. Senator's office as well.
Name him.
Well,
name him.
I'm not going to give the
name him.
I'm not going to give everyone. Well, I'm not going to give him that level of public acknowledgement. But yeah, so they sat down with him and they told him that the CDC commissioned report that was actually paid for by the CDC and acknowledged by the CDC and has been widely acclaimed as being accurate, thorough, and knowledgeable, saying that it has been this debunked and all this other stuff and throwing out all these conspiracy theories. But yet, so the guy who actually put this thing together is a registered Democrat voter. The guy who put this thing together is a registered Democrat voter. But yet, these gun-grabbing organizations came out and said, we can't trust this science. We can't trust what the CDC paid this guy to do and promoted for several years. So we have to kill it. We have to bury it. We have to dig it up. We have to kill it again. And then we have to bury it again. Those are from leaked emails from this organization to the CDC. And guess what the CDC did?
They deleted them.
They killed it. They buried it. They dug it up. They killed it again, and they buried it.
Which, I mean, it just goes back to the point of what we already knew what was going on. When, this administration has been notorious for going around and making appointments to, positions that they knew that they would not have any other leeway in any other kind of way. Because if the American public had any kind of say-so in it, they would not allow for this to happen, especially here where the head of the CDC is.
Yeah. It's ridiculous to think that a report that has such high acclamations from folks from across the aisles on either side and saying just how well done this report was, that they said that it had to be debunked and then it had to be hidden from public knowledge because these numbers were too high and it defeated everything that they were trying to do.
It goes back to what we were saying. It didn't do anything. Gun restrictions is not going to do anything.
No.
It's not going to change anything. I mean, like, the case study is the UK. Well, I've talked about this multiple times. If you were to take guns, criminals are going to use knives. If you were to take knives, they're going to find flamethrowers. They're going to do whatever because violence and people who have
vehicles.
Yeah, or vehicles. People who have that mindset are going to use whatever is in their hand at the time. It doesn't matter if it's a gun, a knife, a car, a flamethrower, a boomerang. They're going to commit heinous acts because of whatever their mental issue is at the moment.
Oh yeah.
And so it's a mental health issue, and it's time that we stop trying to restrict, law-abiding citizens from purchasing weapons. That they need to defend their home from these people who are going through these mental breakdowns.
Yeah, the author of this report that produced these numbers of upwards of 60,000 to 2.5 million people using firearms to actually defend themselves against criminal acts, and not just in the process of these criminal acts involving firearms against them themselves. He even said, I went into the study with the mindset of, I want to get rid of firearms altogether. But he said, because of the numbers that we've received and the information that we took and that we gathered, I have to go against my original thoughts.
And that's just like, this reminds me of like when you join a fraternity and you do something wrong, you got to go in a chapter and sit with everybody else. And that's pretty much like what they call this meeting for. They were like, hey, you're going against the regime. What are you doing? And he's like, I have to follow the data. And here's someone who's trying to like even reconcile with their own messed up psyche that here's the reality of the situation. But everyone else around him is saying, well, then don't expose it, which is the problem that we've all had with the Democrats so far. It doesn't matter what we tell them. It doesn't matter that we show them that, hey, what you're saying is wrong. They will still do whatever it takes to try to get their way.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And I should say, since you're talking about fraternity, the preamble for this study that went out, it actually explicitly went into who were the donors for this study to be released. And it listed just about every anti-gun organization out there and explicitly said, I have never taken funding from the NRA. I've never taken funding from any pro-gun group or organization on the face of the planet. I've only taken funding from these anti-gun groups, but yet this is what the data says.
Hey, as the saying says, sucks to suck, because you know what I mean? Like that has to be the biggest slap in the face. Like,
Mhm.
There's nothing else that can be more damaging to the left psyche than what we've been telling them to not only come out as true, but then they fund a study to try to prove us wrong, only to be proving themselves wrong.
Exactly. I mean, think about it. One of the biggest anti-gun countries in the world, France. The shooting that occurred in that theater several years ago.
Yep.
I mean, fully automatic weapons up on the balconies and just opening up into the general public.
I mean, just not even that. I think about can you imagine? Do you remember what happened to Macron a couple years ago when they started doing protesting and like went down to his house and like started throwing things at his house? Did you see that?
Mm-mm.
Oh, I mean, like they did a full out riot during COVID and they marched down the street.
The Yellow Jackets?
Yes. And got to his house and they were breaking windows. Can you imagine that happening at the White House? That would never happen because we like guns.
It happened in 2020. Something similar that sent President Trump to the bunker with Black Lives Matter. But they don't talk about that.
I don't think I remember that at all.
Mm-hmm.
They got past the gate.
Well, it got to the point to where they had to take the president out of the West Wing and take him into the bunker because of how bad the protests and how bad, because of how bad the riots got outside the gates there.
Well, so like, okay, I get that, right? But what I'm talking about is like, that's like somebody coming through the door right now. Like our door is right there for the studio.
Good luck on that.
Like, you know what I mean? Like that's like somebody like throwing something through the door, you know, as how close they were to the president of France. We would never like, you know what I mean? Like, Secret Service has full autonomy and authority to gun you down.
Yeah,
and you get that close. Like I get it. Like protocol says, hey, just to be on the safe side, they're within 200 yards. We need to move you to a different location. Like they were 50 feet from this man. They threw a brick through his window that he like can see. Like you know what I'm saying? Like that's a whole nother level.
Well, because France is known for beheading their leaders. So,
and again, that's what happens when you're soft and you don't like guns.
That's true. Well, I mean,
because
that's fully loaded and round in the chamber. So, go ahead and try and bust down the door here.
Unless you're the feds. Because I'm not getting shot today.
That's all. May or may not be military grade armor piercing rounds.
Hey.
So, may or may not be. We'll leave it at that.
It reminds me of Gucci Mane's song.
You would bring up rap.
Hey, kick a door.
Kick a door, get shot up.
Basically.
If you make it past one, you won't make it past two.
That's it.
You better bring more.
Hey, I'm telling you, whoever your door kicker is better be a big dude because he's the first one getting hit. He's the first one getting hit.
Yeah.
That's why, well, I don't know if I can say that on the show.
You can't. Don't do it. If you are asking yourself whether or not you can say it, don't say it.
That's the only time you don't want to be number 4. You're in the military, you know.
It's called the fatal funnel for a reason.
That's it. That's it. Never be number 1. I really don't want to be number 2 either.
You be number 1. That's number 4 that you don't want to be.
Yep.
Number 4 is the first one through the door.
Yep.
Oh man. But yeah, we are not in any way
not
advocating violence at all, or saying that we would fire on federal officers at all, because Jamie and I would never do anything
definitely
like
not
that.
Saying
Ever.
that. We're definitely not saying that.
Yes, without question, especially while we're recording this episode, or at any point in time,
or any
whatsoever.
point in our lives ever.
We are 100% theorizing on anything that we're saying.
I'm not even talking about that. I'm just talking about variations of military tactics.
And we are recording this in Jamie's house, not Justin's.
Just a FYI.
Oh man.
Come to my house, use the address of my license.
Yeah. You're gonna put me in that episode in that spot too, huh? So but no, we have to ask this question because we know the CDC has done a lot of shady stuff here in the past several months, in the past several years. And there's no question about that. They've pushed a lot of stuff that now they're coming back and say, oh, well, we're wrong. Sorry. We shouldn't have done that. We shouldn't have been as enforceful in what we were doing as what we did. So we have to ask, if we know they are hiding this data in an effort to push a specific agenda, what else are they hiding? And we've seen them come out here recently in a call to bring back masks in major cities.
No one's gonna listen to them. I mean, like the left listens to them, of course, but like, you know what I mean? Like, no one really listens to them. Like that, it goes back to the point of why is China rioting right now? Okay, because once they lifted the COVID restrictions in China, they tried to bring them back, and people said absolutely not. I can't fathom if they actually tried to do that in you know, here in America, you know, and same thing with the mask,
Try doing that again in Northwest Georgia.
Like, hey, when I see people with a mask, I go, weird flex, but okay, you know what I mean? And I just keep going.
You do you.
Yeah, you do you. That's fine. You know, if you need to pass me something, I'll make sure I pass you some hand sanitizer with it. You know, because clearly you've made a conscious decision, or maybe you have, you know, a reason why, which is okay too. You know, I'm not here to judge. I'm just saying, you know, when God says it's my time to go, I'm gonna go, regardless of how it is. So I ain't put on a mask.
Fair enough. I mean, that's a good sentiment with that one.
If I died in that car wreck a couple weeks ago, then
you're invincible.
I'm damn sure ain't worried about a virus. Sorry. I can't help it. I didn't do it while we were live.
So I told you not to. Oh man. But yeah, it's if they're hiding stuff like this, what else are they hiding? I mean, sincerely, that's outside of these, what people dub as conspiracy theories, outside of any of this other stuff. We know that they are actually hiding things. So what else are they hiding? I mean, it's a valid question.
Yeah. I mean, and I'm just going to be blunt. Who at that level of governmental agency sends stuff like that in an email anyway? That's dumb. That's literally some, you know what I mean? That's a generational problem.
That's some rookie stuff.
That's some rookie stuff. Like, you don't pass a note. You don't have sticky notes. Y'all can't go meet at lunch. Who puts that in writing?
And sends it out into a publicly available information gathering data.
For you. What? Wow.
Oh, man.
Boomers, man. Like, who else would send that in an email? I'm sorry. Like,
you're killing me today, man. You're killing me.
I'm just trying to give the blunt and honest truth.
Well, I guess I asked the question, so I knew it was coming with that.
Yeah.
But with that, we do also like to remind our viewers to make sure they're hitting the like and the share button on any of the content that we do produce, as well as hitting the subscribe button. That way, you'll never miss a single episode of anything Jamie and I produce, as well as you'll always be able to come back and see Jamie's incredibly roaring laughter and hear that that infectious tone that really brings the holly jolly spirit to just about everybody.
Ho, 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 ho.
And we also encourage our viewers to also go to our website, conservativestalk.org, and hitting that sponsor tab and helping us out with what you're able to, because every little bit will directly fund Jamie and I to ultimately take over the world.
And we're coming faster than you think.
A little bit of that. If only you knew.
If only you knew.
So that let's get into our next topic, and that is the new American citizenship test.
So I understood that the whole purpose of it was always to be like Civics 101. And let me back up for a second, right? Like the citizenship test, once you go through the entire courses, the process, everything else, it was supposed to be, basically the equivalent of what a lot of us in, who go through the American public school system refer to as Civics 101.
Like middle school.
And we had to write essays, but now they want to move it to more of a true false multiple choice test. And then just like a lot of lower end public school systems, they're probably going to give you the cheat answers too, to where you just have to memorize question 1 is A, question 2 is B, question 3 is C, and then you pass, which once again, instead of reforming immigration, they're taking the cheap way out and they're going to give you a Scantron with the answers.
Yes. So what the Biden administration is wanting to do is they're taking 1,500 volunteers, and this actually came out in the Federal Register just the other day. And they're with those 1,500 volunteers, they're going to start to administer a new sort of civics test. It will have new information, new questions that haven't been introduced before, that these educational experts that the Biden administration has approved and allowed to come in to do this. So we already know that it's going to be 100%
racket.
Skewed already.
I mean, if they put their stamp on it, it's a racket.
Yeah. They're going to give them 10 questions. They only have to get 6 right.
Oh, 60%. You're not even passing.
Well, it's passing now under the new grading scale.
Which is also true, right? Because a F is a 59 or less. And
I don't even know. I think it's 50 now.
Oh, that's even worse.
After COVID, I think it's 50.
Oh, my God. They really are building idiocracy.
Yeah.
Jesus Christ. I really could be president one day. That's scary. I'm telling y'all, you don't want that.
They're taking this, and currently, right as of right now, it's still this 10 questions, 6 right answers, but the test is administered orally. They are given a database of 100 questions, of 100 potential questions that could be asked them, and they have to know the answers to all 100 and get at least 6 of the 10 questions correct. Now they will have the same the same 100 potential questions that they could select from. Still only have to get 6 of them right. Yet they have a 25% chance of recognizing the answer on the Scantron that they're getting ready to fill in the bubble on.
Yeah, because
instead of actually knowing what the answers are by heart and becoming an actual American citizen, it's more of a study to achieve or memorize to achieve.
Study to pass test. Like
it's no student left behind except for citizenship.
Yep. And oh God. So here was my big issue.
I said that for a reason.
Yeah, I know.
You're a Bush boy.
I am a Bush boy, but that was like I've written multiple essays and papers on why No Child Left Behind led to the ruining of our educational system. And here's another reason why. And I don't think, I made a joke about boomers earlier, but I don't think our listeners or older generations understand what the transition that happened in between millennials and Gen Z from Gen X. What happened when we became so adept to taking the test, there is a method behind filling out a Scantron. Like, that based on every Scantron, if you don't know the answer, you always pick B or C. Mm-hmm. If so many questions are in a row seem to be like if it's true or false, you have 5 true or false in a row, one of them is going to be false. They structure these tests based upon the way the Scantron is laid out and the way that, it's easier for it to grade inside of the system. So what as generations we learn is not how to take the test or memorize the information. We learn how to pass. which is why you see a lot of people who, you know, I mean, we always refer to it, you know, my age range as book smart versus street smart, because if you were street smart, you could pass tests and you knew how to critically think through implementation and using it, right? Whereas if you were book smart, you know how to pass the test, but like getting you to implement it in real life, you could never get those people to do it because they didn't learn the critical thinking skill, because all we were taught how to do is pass the test. That's the problem when it comes into, especially something at this level, because they don't know the value of being an American citizen. All they will understand is that, okay, I got my social security card now. I'm still going to not value what we have built in this melting pot.
And I will say, before reading or coming across this article and reading more and more into it, I did not know that it was such a low bar in passing a civics test in order to become an American citizen.
Oh yeah, it's wild, and that's part of my biggest problem with it, right? Because for the bar to be so low, the amount of money that you have to pay and the courses that you have to take, like, you might as well give them all 100 questions. Because the amount of time
they get all 100 questions.
But they only have to pass 6 out of 10.
Yeah, they only get 10 of the questions, but they do receive all 100 questions
to study from.
Yes.
You know what I'm saying? Like, you might as well give them all 100 questions and they got to pass 60 of them. You know what I mean? In order to get the passing grade, which is more reasonable out of the amount of time. Like, they're spending $15,000 to $30,000 just to be able to apply to take the course. And then they're taking these courses like they're like, you know what I mean? Like they're in school, only to give them 10 questions.
Yeah.
Like, that's not fair to even them. And like, over the course of, like, it's almost like going to college. Like, they have to spend, 4 to 7 years, like, taking this only when it's offered. They have to sign up for it. They have to go through this entire process, pay the money beforehand. And at the end of the day, for 10 questions?
Yeah. So the Trump administration had set a program or set the initiative to move it up to 20 questions, and you have to get 12 right. Still, that's on the lower end of where I would be with that whole instance. Because
give them all 100 questions.
Exactly. I would say give them all 100, all of the 100 questions, and we'll see where they fall on that one.
Because it's the same thing, right?
And I would make the threshold 70, not 60.
Well, because it's the same thing. And here's how I look at it, right? If you're one of those dreamers, right? If you came over here with a visa to go to school, if you came over here for work or anything else, you've already had to do something equivalent to that anyway. Those 100 questions would be very minimum to you anyway. Even if it was a time test, you've probably already gone through something that rigorous. Make it worth it, or change the whole thing.
Although I would ask, I wonder how many American students could actually pass this test.
Oh, probably less than what make it through right now. Even at the level that it's at, they probably won't get 6 right.
Which is terrifying in of itself.
Which goes back to why I believe that Common Core and No Child Left Behind was the downfall of the American education system. I'm gonna have to pull up that paper that I wrote.
Yeah, we'll have to do a little expose on how George Bush was an absolutely horrible president.
Whoa. Everyone makes mistakes. No Child Left Behind was a mistake.
There were a lot more than just that.
Whoa.
Open borders, war in Iraq, No Child Left Behind.
We have to differ on the war in Iraq.
Well, of course you would.
Hey.
We'll lie to the American public about why we're going over there.
No one comes off the dollar standard. No one.
At the expense of American lives.
Valid. But we were killing them 2001.
So
I'm not going in there. I'm not doing that. I'm not touching that with 10-foot pole. Every life matters. It's not what I'm saying. I'm just saying that no one, all lives matter. I'm just saying.
You're not. You saw where I was going.
Yep. Nope. Don't you dare. That's why we gotta get rid of Putin. No one comes off the standard.
Oh. At what cost?
At the cost of Ukraine, apparently. But
wow. Wow. Okay. Because did you see the warning that was just issued today?
Mm-mm.
They if America sends Patriot missiles to Ukraine, then Russia will begin to start considering America as becoming a.
When is this coming? When is this coming? I don't understand. Look, that's why. Honestly, I ain't gonna lie to you. That's one of the biggest problems I got with Biden. You know what I mean? Because flaws or not, right? Whether you like either one of the gentlemen I'm about to name or not, whether it's Trump or DeSantis who's president, Putin be gone already.
Or it wouldn't have even happened.
Wouldn't even happen. Wouldn't even been a thought. We got a phone. Look, we've been woken up in the middle of the night with a news alert that said breaking news. The Russian president is dead.
No. That would not have happened. Nor would we ever advocate for that happening.
That's not what I'm saying. I'm saying that the U.S. government would have said.
No, that would not have happened either. Because the invasion never would have happened to begin with.
That's true too. He went across the line.
That's the only truth. That's the only truth that is even viable in this conversation. What are you doing to me, James?
I'm just being blunt and honest.
No, it wouldn't even happen. It wouldn't even been. It would not have even been a second thought.
And you're right. They wouldn't even invaded Ukraine.
It would not, as Karine Jean-Pierre says, top of mind.
Yep, wouldn't even come close. Only reason why they felt emboldened to do this is because
we had a weak president in the office that abandoned all of our military assets in Afghanistan and ran away with his tail tucked between his legs.
$80 billion in weaponry left American citizens.
Mm-hmm. Left American citizens, left American allies, just turned tail and ran in the middle of the night.
Yep.
There's another reason why it should be impeached.
Agree. Justin's like, Russian mob's about to be at the door.
We said feds earlier. We got to keep an eye on the mob now, apparently.
I'm not worried about them. I'm worried more about the feds than I am the Russian mob.
I'm going to go put my vest on real fast. And with that, we do like to encourage our viewers to make sure they're hitting the like button and the share button on any of the content that we do produce and put out, as well as make sure you're subscribing to any of our platforms that we do produce any of our content on. So you'll never miss a single content of any, or never miss a single episode of any of the content that we produce. Is you will always be able to see Jamie's infectious and roaring laughter and hear that, or see that smile that brings joy to everyone's life.
We'll just call Vladimir, the guy we met in Buckhead this past weekend.
Let's not. We also encourage our viewers in going to conservativestalk.org and hitting that sponsor tab, because you will allow Jamie and I to continue putting this together, although I am sincerely regretting a lot of this now. And
I'm scared.
Allowing us to be able to take over the world, although Jamie will not be in any military role whatsoever.
I mean,
no, it's not going to happen. We'll put you in economics.
I can't be the Führer?
No, you'll be in economics. We'll put you in charge of the Bitcoin.
I think I'll be the Führer.
We'll put you in charge of the Bitcoin. I'll take care of the rest. We don't need an Armageddon on our hands.
I like Führer.
We'll make you the economic Führer. We'll make you the economic czar. How about that?
Nah.
We'll have a civil war between us.
yeah. I'm like, all right. I'm tired of playing this game. Let's go do something else. Let's go see what China's doing.
Jamie is wanting to get us assassinated.
Hey, I'm just saying, speaking of freedom, let's talk about whose birthday it is.
Happy birthday, Bill of Rights. Happy birthday to you.
We hope you stick around because the Democrats don't like you.
There's a fair point on that. I mean, they're already trying. I mean, we've seen them colluding with the tech industries and diminishing free speech.
Yeah.
We see them colluding with local state governments and diminishing the right to freedom of assembly.
Yep.
We absolutely see their right or see the Democrats including altogether and really being able to allow for redress of public grievances. We see them coming against the Second Amendment, trying to strip us of that. We see them in the efforts of warrantless seizures of personal property and personal information. So we know for a fact that they are anti-Bill of Rights all across the spectrum, even though someone was brought under George Bush. So, Patriot Act.
Yeah, I know. I knew where you were going with this.
I am going to convince him George Bush was a terrible president before this show's over.
Never. He just proved that the right to privacy was really just an implied freedom, but that's a whole nother ballgame. But I mean, the big thing is their continuous attack on free speech and suppression of free speech. And you can even see that through Elon Musk and, his leak of the Twitter files, which is probably the best thing that happened out of his purchase of Twitter. Because now that they control the server, they can't, Jack Dorsey can't get in there and, try to delete everything that they had already done, which goes back to the same collusion that was happening with the CDC. We now know that Twitter had full sit downs with the Biden administration and other DNC operatives to try to suppress conservative speech for no reason. We also know that the ban that they put on President Trump had literally nothing to do with the same reasons that they wanted to, other than they wanted to kill his messaging. And once again, we now have come to this realization, or are bringing Democrats in this realization, that the wool has been pulled over their eyes. And they use their AI algorithms to continuously suppress truth and conservative messaging.
Oh yeah, no. Well, I mean, there's no question on that. These documents that Elon's releasing are damning, to say the least. So you can say it that way. But it's
sorry for cussing.
We knew that they were doing this, but we did not know to the level of what they were doing it at.
Yeah.
And these file releases that Elon's doing have shed more light on just how extensive and underhanded and slimy and just anti-American that the Democrats went to in an effort to really make sure that they had every bit of influence in American elections as they claimed China and Russia had during 2016.
Yep. That is the absolute truth. And, for those of you who don't know too, this goes back to why they brought in Mark Zuckerberg, why they had such a hard time with a lot of things, why, in my opinion, President Biden was going to be their only choice. And what I'm saying is that there is a certain level of information that you're allowed to purchase from these tech giants, and they were selling it. And that was one of the big things that that came to light around 2017, 2018. And what was realized was that the same way that Obama was able to get out and get influence in the Democratic Party was similar to the way that President Trump was able to do it, but President Trump, being a good American citizen, shared it with, people on how to do it. Obama didn't. And so what ended up happening was they wanted to come after Trump and criticize, because the rest of the Democratic elected body had no way of doing it to gain their own influence. This is where the Twitter play became big, is because Facebook at that point shut down how they sold everyone's information out. So they brought Facebook in to do testimony on how they would do their business practices and business to business practices on consumer information. And Twitter said, I know how he's doing it. I'll sell it to you, which is the most criminal thing in the entire world. So, when Facebook did it, you look at it and you go, okay, you didn't realize the power you had. You didn't realize what could be done through your technology and the amount of information that you were taking from people, or that people were basically giving you willingly.
Or at least that's what they were claiming.
Okay, right? First, you have a little bit of autonomy. What makes Twitter so worse, and why I think someone like Jack Dorsey needs to be locked up, is because of the fact that he knowingly, after Facebook's testimony, knowingly understood what he was doing and then did it on behalf of the Democratic Party and was protected under private industry.
Mm-hmm.
That's a problem.
No, without a doubt. Yeah, it's
he stole the election.
Yeah, they said that it was China and Russia, but no, it was Twitter and Facebook.
Yep.
But another part of this, so we covered the First Amendment, or the First Amendment in the Bill of Rights. The second one was brought up in a recent U.S. House hearing, and that was on the practices of firearms, the firearm industry, and how this would affect the American population moving forward. Well, interestingly enough, there was a Republican representative that stood up and said, I agree with you. We absolutely will need to get rid of the Second Amendment if we do not get our country back to the morals of what it was founded on.
I don't understand what we're talking about. But here's what I mean by that. Yeah. Here's what I mean by that. Right. Like, taking our guns away is getting away from the morals that this country was founded on. So how does taking them away get us back to the morals that this country was founded on? Okay.
He's saying we will have to take them away if we don't get back to the morals. What he's saying there is, if we don't start raising kids within the morality or the Christian values of what our country was founded on, what made it grow to such prosperous heights, if we don't get back to that base, then we're going to have a bunch of lawless heathens running around everywhere, killing people with these firearms. So yes, we're going to need to get rid of firearms. Yes, we're going to need to do away with the First Amendment. Yes, we're going to need to, well, the freedom of speech. We're going to need to get rid of the right to assembly. We're going to need to get rid of a lot of things in order just to protect people from themselves. That is, if we do not get back to the Judeo-Christian values that this country was founded on.
I understand his perspective, and maybe it's the way that you repeated it to me that makes it slightly confusing, because the way that we do it is we vote Democrats out of office. You know what I mean? Because
that gets back to Judeo-Christian values, because Democrats have none of those.
Have none. And that's where I'm getting at with this, is like, it's not stripping away our freedoms that's the problem. It's the fact that they have brainwashed and color washed. Is that how you put that? Anyway, I don't think I can say that.
Whitewashed?
Well, no, whitewashed is what they say we do.
No.
So color wash would be what they do.
That you do or I do.
You know what I'm saying? So I don't know. I think that we are down a dangerous road for the future, and there is a the silent majority is growing, and in that we just have to do a better understanding of messaging how we advocate for who we want to be elected and get some of these people out.
I understand, and I agree with this legislator said. And so, for those who aren't aware, it was Congressman Louis Gohmert who said this, and I completely agree with what he said. Because if we don't get back to those principles of the Christian faith that this country was founded on, the whole separation church and state is a complete. It's been taken above and beyond of what it was actually intended for.
Well, there was never really supposed to be a separation church and state.
To a degree, there was supposed.
What that meant?
Never supposed to be the church having an actual seat within the state. Correct. Which was the whole purpose of it, and everyone has taken that to mean that religion was not supposed to be accounted in how we build our laws and everything else, which is not true. No,
what they didn't want was the head of the church, like it was in England, being a member of the head of state
and having a dedicated, powerful seat within the legislative and within the executive body.
Correct. That's like all of us being the same denomination. Like I'll just use mine, right? Like that's all of us being United Methodist and the head of the General Bishop Council.
Why would you tell anybody that?
It's fine. I mean, if you know anything about me, which is 7 of the counties in the 14th district, were my dad's district, I mean, they already know. They like that's like being the Archbishop of the General, delegation for the United States having a seat with the presidential cabinet, which is a problem. I agree with that, but this whole idea that religion was not supposed to be accounted into how we create our laws or how we structure our values or how we teach our children is the complete opposite of what our founding fathers want. And that's very well documented.
Oh, yes, very much so. People try to use John Locke to argue against that. But what Locke was saying was that religion is essential to government.
Correct.
But it cannot be used in government.
That's it. It cannot be the head of government, but that is the moral basis of every law that we should create. Thou shalt not kill is the basis for, murder charges. You know what I mean? If we didn't have that in the basis of religion, then you could kill people to a certain degree and not get the rest of your life imprisonment for it. Same thing with stealing. Same thing with anything else. All the bases of our law are found within religion, whether they like it or not.
And if there's a minor present, even taking the Lord's name in vain.
Yep.
Here in Georgia.
Can't cuss around a kid. Automatic arrest.
If they're under 12 years old. Absolutely.
Yep.
So, yeah. I mean, it's I want to say it'll be interesting, but it won't really be interesting. Nail biting, I think, would be a better way of saying it, because what we as America have done in this experimentation in representative democracy is unprecedented in the entire history of the world. We're the longest serving democratically elected country. And if the Democrats have their way, it'll go to a true democracy, of which Aristotle said would be the absolute worst movement that could ever happen.
Yeah, we'll fall.
Excuse me. But yeah, it will be interesting to see just how far the Democrats are going to try and take this, because I've seen a lot of ads that have been coming out against this. What's status quo Joe, don't run, because they're trying to say Joe Biden is a moderate status quo president. He's not progressive enough. Joe Biden has been one of the most progressive presidents in the history of our country. But yet they're trying to say he's status quo. And they're pushing that messaging into trying to keep him from running again. So what is it exactly that they're wanting done?
Oh, they want anarchy.
No, they want something.
I mean, that's the bottom line. I mean, like when you
they want that national divorce is what they want.
Well,
we'll give it to them.
Yeah,
Jamie's an advocate for that. We'll call a couple sheriffs.
Don't get me started.
We've already got.
You're gonna get me riled up.
We already had the signal, by the way.
Already have my signal. I have my battle flag. All right, look, y'all think we're kidding.
Jamie has his Hawaiian shirt picked out.
Like I'm. Justin jokes about it on the show, and most people think that he is actually a little bit more rap. Like, I'm ready for the whole movement. He keeps me in raps because I will set this thing off like we're starting a fire.
Sprechen Sie Deutsch?
Look, I was ready. Hey, y'all think I'm kidding? Be fear for real.
Oh man.
Hey, whatever though.
And with that in mind, we like to remind our viewers to make sure they're hitting the like and the share button on any of the content that they come across in the platforms that we produce our content on, as well as hitting the subscribe button. That way you'll never miss a single episode of any of the content that Jamie and I produce. You'll always be able to see his incredibly heartwarming smile and hear that infectious laughter that makes you just want to gravitate towards him. We also encourage our viewers to go on our website at conservativestalk.org and hitting that sponsor tab and helping us out with what you're able to, because you will be directly contributing to Jamie and I being able to spread our influence throughout the world in an effort to one day take it over.
The Southern Heritage Project is real. And just got me all fired up beforehand, but I do want to make this last comment on the last subject real quick before we jump. Yeah, I do. Okay. I do. The that last comment being this is that you can see how far they're willing to go just by what they've done so far.
Yes, absolutely.
And when you see the fact of they are willing to use, psychological tactics to influence a younger generation, to where a younger generation who's in college now does not believe that capitalism is a viable option, that they want to move for socialism. They are now trying to reform the educational system in all secondary schools to fit that same mantra. And then they are now replacing even what we feel is the most progressive leadership inside of their party with people who are even further to the left than we ever imagined was even possible. Like, you see where this is going, which is why we can't let something that, happened this past December, happen again, because we'll be old men. I mean, you'll be over 40.
You'll be old. I won't.
Jamie
will be old. I won't be old.
Yeah, I hopefully will be retired by that point and not doing anything like this, be off camera forever. But
never. The world will never allow that incredibly heartwarming smile and that infectious laughter from ever disappearing.
That's what y'all keep telling me, but you and the rest of the PR team are going to have a nightmare.
Oh man. And with that, let's jump into the conspiracy corner and talk about government overreach.
Yeah, like this one is even
this one made my head made me scratch my head a little bit
than usual, because like this is one of those things to where you're like, why are you even getting involved with this, Biden?
Like, really?
Like, out of all the things you have to worry about, you want to worry about how fast boats come into port, and then you're going to use something as outrageous as, well, we're doing it to protect the whales in order to do it.
Yeah. So what Jamie's talking about is the Biden administration through NOAA, which was the the National Ocean something administration, whatever it is. Yeah, it's the organization that came up with the giant lie of climate change and global warming and all this other crap. That's the birthplace of climate change is NOAA. But what they're wanting to do is they're wanting to be able to restrict the speed that boats over, well, between the sizes of 35 feet to 65 feet can travel within 100 miles of the eastern seaboard of the United States. And they want to keep it at such a level that these boats can't actually function in the way that they are intended to function, and would ultimately put the boat and the crew on the boat in peril for functioning at that speed. In an effort to save a whale that over the past 15 years has only have 5 documented interactions with boats altogether throughout the world.
Okay, right. We're in the conspiracy corner.
But, as the Babylon Bee said, Americans run out of conspiracy theories, but they're coming true.
I'm gonna start here, okay? And you're gonna have to follow me for a minute.
This is oof.
Because I just find it funny and interesting that when Joe Biden administration when he was the vice president, right, and a lot of his people were with the Obama administration, that they were doing sonic boom testing inside of the ocean to where whales were popping up on shore. And if you watch the Discovery Channel, this is where the whole mermaids are real theory came from. And this is how all that comes into play, is because
Buck's been saying that for years though.
Right? So they said that a lot of oceanic life was popping up on shores. And it wasn't until we started seeing tens of hundreds of whales popping up on the West Coast, that we were like, what's going on? And eventually they admitted that they were doing, sonic boom testing inside of the ocean as, an offset to nuclear weapons. So basically what I'm saying is the same people who were doing this said that they want boats to slow down to protect an endangered species of whales that literally live so deep that no one sees. And that's why I made the joke about killer whales and everything else, because those are the ones that we see. Those are the ones that, Free Willy, when they pop up, those are the ones that were coming to shore. Mm-hmm. Those are the ones that you would think would be in the most danger when it comes to boat interaction, not the right whale that is so large and goes so deep that people like me didn't even know it existed until our biologist told us.
Jamie actually did not know.
I know what a right whale was
an actual species of whale until I started explaining what this entire segment was about.
I thought he was talking about
a whale named Wright,
or a whale named Wright, or a heir to the crown of England or something, from from the original Wales family. I don't I was like, who went down?
That wasn't a typo. There is a nation.
I was like, who is right whale?
Well, yeah, they are trying to put an entire industry out of business here. So imagine this. Here in Georgia, we had the Savannah Port. Well,
thank you.
Any boat over the limit of 65 feet already has a set designated speed that they can travel in, going in and out of these shipping lanes, these shipping ports, which these shipping lanes are it's probably about 100 miles or so. I mean, that's how they move in and out without crashing into each other and everything. So it's an extensive area where these container vessels are able to come in and out of. The boats that they are trying to regulate now between the sides of 35 feet and 65 feet can't even travel as fast as the boats that they would potentially be guiding into these shipping lanes. So you will have a massive cargo container going at 15 knots. Well, these other smaller vessels wouldn't be able to go more than 12 knots. So how are these vessels going to then be able to guide these other vessels into these ports?
Which is a big thing. And I learned a lot about that at my, recent trip down to the Savannah port. And you can see the tugboats guiding them in and out of port with these large, massive shipping containers.
Mhm.
And, that's the thing. They have to go faster than the boat in order to pull. And then when they got the boat out of the port, they're doing the same thing from behind. But it's just interesting to me that once again, someone would actually come out and say that, no, like that's not okay. Like from the size of them, we need them to go slower. And then not even know the process of how we get our shipments in to port.
Yeah, this is a puzzler because it makes no sense on any level whatsoever. I mean,
unless they don't want the boats being guided, which leads to a whole other slew of questions.
Yeah, that's another head scratcher on that one. But in 15 years, only 5 interactions with this species of whale.
I don't know what it was.
5 in 15 years. That's 1 per every 3 years. You have just the hundreds of thousands of vessels that would fall within this category. Only you're looking at 1 every 3 years. Hundreds of,
okay.
You would have better luck of hitting the lottery than you would of hitting one of these whales
and
in
get
one
struck
of these
by
vessels.
lightning. And I I got this question too, right? Did the whale die?
That I have no idea.
Like, because usually
it's a big whale.
Quick Google search, right? Like usually these are the whales that wreck boats, not like they capsize boats. So going slower, logically thinking, would be more damage to the boat.
Well, I mean, not just that, but going slower would put the boat at more of a risk.
That's what,
because you have you have a wave. So you have a wave coming. Boats are designed to run on top of the water. So if you have a wave that is coming and you have a boat that's sitting deeper in the water, that wave is going to more likely capsize that boat. It's going to have a much greater chance of flipping that boat over as opposed to that boat running on top of that wave. So you're putting American lives at risk in an effort to save a species that only has interactions with boats once every 3 years.
I don't understand.
No, I mean, that's NOAA for you. That's the climate change or the global warming, climate change expertise gurus there. A bunch of, I'm gonna refrain from using some colorful language there with that one. But these are the people that, so give a heads up on something we have coming in the future. These are the same people that the guy who came up with the whole climate change, global warming, global cooling theory, and then later came back and denounced this theory and say, whoa, no, hold on. You're taking this a lot further than what you should, a lot further than what my research is showing. They came back and said, oh, well, don't listen to this guy. He's a kook. It's the same organization.
They took a man's research, made it their own, and then told the creator that he's crazy for going against it.
Yep.
Yeah, it sounds like a government agency.
Mm-hmm. It's not even a regulatory body, yet they're getting ready to make this regulation.
Because they're taking... something else is there.
To save a whale every 3 years. At least that's what they're saying.
But we don't even know if the whale probably didn't die because it's probably bigger than most of the boats it's hitting.
Yes.
You know what I mean? Like this isn't, again, this isn't a killer whale, which are also massive. This is 2 of them.
Very large whale.
Like so large that they have to go to the further depths of the ocean.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Yeah, they even came up with the idea or these advocacy groups that are the pro boating groups are saying, why not? So there's only 350 of this species of whale left.
Documented.
Yes. Why not tag each of them and provide that to the boaters and say, look, this is where these whales are. Avoid them. Makes sense to me. There's only 350 of them.
And even with that, like we only know of 350 of them. Because if it's like any other, and you're the biologist, correct me if I'm wrong. If it's any other like marine life, their young stay at near the bottom.
Well, they stay with
near the floor.
Yeah, well, no. So
not the floor.
The young travel with the cow.
Yes.
So you'll have, say, a pod that comes through that will have like a family group, and then you'll have the mother and the child and the calf will be traveling with that cow. So you will have a very large whale come up and then a smaller whale potentially coming up with them. But even still,
which is
one every 3 years,
which goes along with what I'm trying to say, right? Like the children and the female will be at a lower depth than the male will.
Well, unless they're breaching coming up for air.
Correct.
But think about this. One every 3 years, these mammals produce at a rate that exceeds once or more than once every 3 years. So that would not in any way affect the population growth.
Which also leads me to believe that there's more than 350. They just only were able to
identify. Yes.
350.
It's an estimate. Yes.
And that just further goes to my point of like they're probably at lower depths giving birth, things like that. That's where their food source is, and then the larger ones may have to come up for air or do other things, whatever. Aside to that, which is why they've only been able to identify such a low number.
Or they've already got the 350 tag that they know of, and they're just not providing that to the boat.
Which also why they have a precise number, and they haven't been able to get close enough to a school of them to try to see pod school, whatever. Same school of fish, pod of whales, right? Right whale, killer whale. Anyway,
it's like a gander of geese.
Like, okay, flocks. I'm just trying to explain this like any other normal human being who's not brilliant would understand. So the bottom line is that
the Biden administration is crap, and we all know it.
And they're doing this for other means, other objectives. And I think that's the deeper story, is they're trying to use this for something else. But what's the underlining meaning?
That's a good question.
Are they trying to kill fishing? There's
a good chance of that, because it will harm. So think about this. If they're not able to travel at the speeds that they're used to travel, if you have a fishing vessel that would be going out for a run that would take them half an hour to an hour to get to, you're looking at now that vessel having to spend 3 to 4 hours getting to the spot that they wanted to, and then having a shorter fishing time, and then taking another 3 or 4 hours getting back. Why even do that?
Well, because
it's counterproductive.
Well, here's my other thought, right? Like, if it's not killing fishing, why are you trying to get so many people out of the port? Because what you're doing now is you're taking bodies who would be there working out of the port. You're delaying the time for the ship to get there.
Mm-hmm.
So it's not as questionable if it takes 4 to 5 hours for a larger ship to come in. You know what I mean? Like what are you hiding? What are you trying to smuggle? What are
China.
You know what I mean? What are you trying to like stop from being visible through the port that you can't get in, or you don't want known in? And I just go back to that. These are the same people who were flying people in the middle of the night when that was caught. We build a wall. You know what I mean? Governor Abbott was talking about he's going to finish Texas' section of the wall. We build a wall on the southern border. Like, what are you trying to bring in through our port that you don't want these people who are there almost 24 hours a day during season to no longer be there?
I got you going with that.
Using the damn well that no one knows about.
That Jamie doesn't know about. And with that in mind, we do like to take a moment at the end of each show to make sure that we are asking our viewers to make sure they're hitting the like button as well as the share button on any of the productions that we do on any of the platforms that we do release our productions on, as well as hitting the subscribe button. That way you'll never miss a single moment of any of the content that we produce, as well as always be able to come back and see Jamie's incredibly glowing and gleaming smile and hear that roaringly infectious laughter. We also like to encourage our viewers to come to our website at conservativetalk.org and hitting that sponsor tab in the upper right-hand corner or the lower right-hand corner and helping us out with what you're able to, because it will be because of you that we will be able to continue to spread our message, and you will be directly contributing to Jamie's and I's takeover of the world. We also want to say a quick thank you to our national affiliates, that first one being Net News Network. So you can find them at netnewsnetwork.net, as well as coming back and visiting Veterans for America First and their media arm, Vet Voice. You'll never go wrong with America First policy on Veterans for America First or Vet Voice, so make sure you are checking out both of these organizations. So with that in mind, Jamie, any final thoughts?
I just want to say Merry Christmas, guys.
I'm wearing my festive my festive gear with this. Oh, I hadn't shown anybody this, so check it out. It's
T-Rex
Christmas Rex there. Gotta love Christmas Rex. Rex he's the OG.
That's it. And remember the reason for the season.
Absolutely. So we will be back. Well, actually,
right before Christmas.
We got one more episode before Christmas.
Yep.
And then after that, we're going to take for Christmas. We'll take a little bit of break, and we'll be right back for New Year's. And then we're going to take a little New Year's break, and then we'll jump right into 2023 with both feet and bring you exactly what the Republican House is doing in Congress.
Yeah, things are about to get real fun.
That's putting it mildly. But with that in mind, thank